is going on, guys? I am very excited because we have some parts in. We are back with Jordan from Modular Head Shop, and he's going to fill you in on what we're doing today. We've got some really shiny, cool parts here, and he'll fill you in on what those are.
What's going on, everybody? Alright, today we're going to go over crankshaft balancing. So, I'm sure everybody's familiar with the term, probably not familiar with the process, so we're gonna get to all the nitty-gritty details today. Right here is our balancing worksheet, and so this is pretty much where we're recording all the weights of everything, and then we're going to do all the math and then build the bob weights. The bob weights are simply going to replicate the weight of the rods and pistons, but also the pins, the wrist pin locks, the piston rings, the rod bearing, all that stuff is very important as well. So it kind of gets divided into two separate portions: rotating mass and reciprocating mass. So rotating, obviously turning; reciprocating, obviously going up and down. So pretty much the only thing that is not reciprocating is the big end of the rod and the bearing. So that's why you have to have a rod scale, and we're going to go through all that as well. The first thing I'm going to do is pull out the pistons one by one. We're going to measure them, record them here, and then we'll pull out the rings, pins, and measure all that stuff, and then we'll get to balancing the rods.
So we can show exactly what we have here, because this is the first time we're actually showing kind of the new bottom end parts.
Correct.
Because we've been talking heads, and we'll be talking heads in the next video. But
yes,
this is a pretty sight.
This is where the heart goes.
Yeah.
Alright, so your spec card. These pretty things.
Those look killer.
Here's my scale. Now this is a scale that most drug dealers probably have or wish they had in their house. Extremely sensitive. I'll just barely blow on this and you can see, look, I mean just the air pressure. It will move around between 0 and 1 gram, but we're just barely blowing it.
Oh yeah.
So it is super, super duper accurate.
So you record the weight for all 8?
All 8. I will say that I used to just be so freaking anal that I would weight match all the pistons too. Just either grind little portions in here and get them all to weight match. They're so damn close. I do not do that anymore, and the reason I don't do that is because we would balance rotating assemblies with standard bore stuff. I don't know why everybody wants to put standard bore on a 20-year-old block, and then the customer would want to return it. I can't return pistons to the manufacturer that have already been balanced. So what we do is we just take the average weight. They're going to be within 7 or 8 tenths of a gram, and that number gets divided. So the reciprocating mass gets divided in half for the bob weight.
Alright, so there it is.
So we got half a gram difference between all 8 pistons. That's pretty darn good. And that's pretty much par for Diamond. I mean, their stuff is awesome all the time. Makes my job easy. This could be that. So we'll go with 388.2 on there. The other number written down is 51.8. That's the rod bearing. I know that for a fact because we got tired of measuring the same rod bearings all the time, so just memorize what it weighs. The next thing we're going to do is the piston rings. Now, one thing for everybody to consider is that if you have a Coyote or you have a Stroker and they have an oil support rail, that's what's going to keep the oil ring stable if the pin bore goes through the oil ring here, right? If you have that, that needs to get weighed as well because it is part of the reciprocating mass. And typically, if you get pistons from Diamond, you're going to have both the locks and the oil support rails right here on the top of the box. Alright, so we got 1 cylinder's worth of piston rings. We have the oil expander, the 2 oil supports, top ring, and the second ring. Should be high 20s. There you go. 28.8. Now I'm going to take a guess at the pin right now, because I personally have not balanced an assembly with these exact pistons in a long time. But I would guess that the pin weighs about 130, 132 grams. It is a 200 wall H13 upgrade. Alright, next are the pins. They are made by Trend. And so something about wrist pins here too. There's 2 types of pins. Most of the pins that I use are straight wall. They do not have a chamfer on them. These, however, do have a chamfer. It's very, very small. So the difference is when you order these for this one, it's got a C on the end. C is not for coated, C is for chamfered. And why is it chamfered? It is chamfered because we're using round wire locks and the way that they locate the pin, it has to be chamfered. If you had a straight wall pin, you would use a single or double spiral lock, which I actually prefer. But this is how these are made, and I've never had an issue with these. Oh, it was close. All right, put them right back where they came from for now. It's 2.0, right? Okay, now we're gonna get on to the rods. So there's really two ways to do rods. I go the way that you can kind of haul butt after you get your preliminary measurements done. So I never went to school for any of this, so when I first got this machine, it's okay, we're gonna balance the big end. So record all your big end weights, and then we're gonna go back, we're gonna take a little bit of material off, and then check your big end again. I don't do that now. There's no point, it's a waste of time. Take your time, get your big end and your small end measurements, which is going to be your total. And then after that, you're just going to weigh the total rod, because then you don't have to worry about balancing the fixture correctly every time. And I'll kind of explain that as we show you how to do the first few. All right, so these are the Monar Power Adder rods. They have a lot more material than the standard ones. So we will be adding weight to this crank. There is no way around that. We are going to be adding weight.
You think I'll bend this?
No. No, I know guys that are making some serious steam with these.
Oh yeah. That's heavy. That's what the GT500 should have come with.
Possibly. Then we wouldn't have a job.
Exactly.
I'm going to get these unpackaged, get them lined up, and then we will get the balancing. Alright, so we got the rods unpackaged. I got them labeled numbers 1 through 8 just so there's no confusion. I'm going to start off by getting my preliminary numbers for the big ends for all of them. Then I will take my big end stand off the scale, re-tare it, and we're going to get all the total weights, do some math, and then we're going to do some rod balancing. It's going to take a few minutes. And I just do this a couple of times to make sure there's no real discrepancies. It's not going to be the exact same every single time, but we're just looking for consistency. And I may need to adjust this scale here in a minute. So you will see some variations. I had 86.0 a few times, 86.1, and 85.9. So we're going to go right in the middle, 86.0.
And then just going to repeat that for the remaining rods.
Alright, so let's mark our highest and our lowest. Number 1 is definitely our lowest, and this one was our highest. Not very much off. Take 1.7 grams, that's not bad. So what we'll do is we're going to get our total weights. What you could do is you could go and you can weight match all of these to this one, which is what we're going to do. And then get your totals, and then figure out what your small end is, and then take the rest off the small end. That takes forever. I'm literally going to record my total, and then what my total needs to be for my big end, and then my small end needs to be, we'll go back and we'll do them all that way. Might be a little confusing at first, but you'll see once I get going. Now we're going to go total weights, pull this off, tear it, 690.3, 485.6, boom, I need to take 1 gram out of there, 486.1, gram and a half, 1.9. Alright, so I'm gonna try to explain the method to the madness here. So what I've done so far, I haven't even taken off any weight, but I know what the lightest one is. Actually, the lightest total was the one with the lightest big end. That's not really a coincidence. That tends to happen. And so what we've done here is I've weighed all the totals, right? And figured out what's the lightest one. This is gonna be the lightest one after we balance the big end to this one. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna balance all these to 484.6. These are the totals. This is what the total needs to become for this number to get to that number. And then after that, all we're gonna do is take the lightest rod, 489.6 minus 484.6, which these will all be, and that is what your small end is going to be. So now, just gonna make some sparks. Our next one, it's at 691.0, 689.6. Most guys don't even balance rods like this, but I'm picky, so we're gonna get them all exactly the same. You know, growing up, I'd go to, like, I would call them local machine shops, kind of general purpose machine shops. Oh, bring me a rod, a piston, and that's it. And they just balance the crank real quick. We're getting a little bit more in depth here as far as how it should be done and weight matching all the components that you can. So I really only need to take off 4/10 here. It's not going to take but a little bit. And where we're going to take material off the rod is just right here on the side. A little airflow over here right now. .8. So just that little bit right there, you can barely see, that was 0.2 of a gram. 690.5. I got 9/9 to go. Alright, we're getting there. Boom. We're there. Yep.
So this might seem a little crazy to someone who's not familiar with this process. You know, taking a brand new rod and grinding it.
Exactly. You are taking minimal material off. I mean, very, very, very minimal. Now you get into like old big block Chevrolet rods. At the top, they got this huge square, and I mean, you could literally, you could take off 10 or 15 grams if you had to. I do not like balancing old stock shit. It is awful. It is all over the place, really.
Just repeat the process for the remaining rods, I guess, right?
Correct. Yep, that's right. So here I only have to take off 0.8. We'll do that next. Yeah. This will take me probably, I don't know, about 10 minutes to finish the big ends, and then we'll go back and we'll do the small ends. So now, using the total weight, we've got all of our big ends weight matched. So now all we're going to do is go back and we're going to take material just off the top here, just a tad bit, and to get all of our numbers down to the lowest one here, which is 689.6. Now you can see here, I got a few 689.6s. So really I only need to balance 5 rods. So from now on it's all 689.6. So we're done weight matching the rods. I'm gonna just verify every single one on the scale real quick, and then we'll wash them, put them back in the box, and get ready to balance the crankshaft. It's picky.
There it is.
All right, so now all 8 rods are all weight matched. Big end, small end, and total. 1/10 of a gram tolerance. That's a little bit excessive probably, but if you're gonna balance rods, you might as well do it the right way and get it done as, you know, as close as you can. So my sanding disc on the machine right now is a little bit dull, and so that's why it was not taking off a ton of material. So I think on the big end, the most we took out on the big end is 1.7 grams, and the most we took out on the small end was 1.8, so not very much. And you can see we were just barely grazing the material at the top. So it doesn't look bad. Cosmetically, you really can't really tell.
So what would be a consequence of not balancing rods like this?
There is not one. All the rods nowadays are so close together, you could probably just weigh one of them. But while we're here, we are trying to do the absolute best job that we can. We're gonna weight match them all. Now, if you were to just get a rotating assembly, or you probably see this in the LS world a lot, guys swapping parts back and forth with different crankshafts. If your crank isn't close, I mean, I've seen like big box Chevys that were 30 grams out end to end. That will probably live. Not very good. It's not gonna feel good. But if you're way out and your crank's not balanced, I'd be praying for those rod bolts because they're probably gonna wiggle out at some point. The vibration would just be awful. Just so everybody can see this. These are the bob weights that replicate the weight of the rod and piston combo. This machine here will spin at 500 RPM or so. Well, if you turn it on without just one of the bob weights on, it will make it to about 250 RPM, and it is coming completely off the machine. So that will just tell you how important the balancing really has to be. We get these rods put away, and then we will talk about the crankshaft, the measurements of the machine, and what all we're gonna do there. All right, so I'm just setting this here for now. I still gotta wipe it down, and it's been sitting on a shelf for a couple weeks. So I gotta wipe it down, and then I gotta build my bob weights. So we'll go through the whole bob weight process. So most balancing machines, they have a bob weight calculator, which we're gonna use here. We also double check that in the office. So pretty much once one of these bob weight cards are done and the crankshaft's been balanced, it goes to the office. Christy in the office, she puts all the information onto a PDF that I've designed. And so it's kind of foolproof. She's literally checking all the math, and I don't know, 1 out of every 50 maybe may have been calculated wrong. So it's just another double check before something goes out the door, before something goes into an engine, that, you know, another person has checked off on it as well. This is an old machine. This is a Heinz HC500, I think, built in 1996. Still has MS-DOS software. It works very well for what it needs to do, but it has no memory, and so that's why I don't keep any bob weight sheets on here. That part of it is dead. But I've probably balanced 1,000 crankshafts on this machine in the last 3 to 4 years, and it hasn't given me a problem.
This is old school.
Old school. How easy is this though? The bob weight is 1830. 1830, it's a cakewalk. It's a little heavy. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna divide these by 2, and we're at 915 per side. So 915 per side. That would include both the fasteners on here. And these are old, so they don't all weigh the same. But what we do is, because I'm just picky, I believe these small washers go down to about 0.4, 0.5 gram. So when I'm off, but not that much, I'm just gonna use a little piece of clay. We're gonna get it 100% perfect before these go on the engines. Let me set these up. I gotta see what they weigh first from the last balance job. All right, so these are a little bit off. I think the last one they did was a Coyote with, I think it was Manly pistons, Manly rods, no upgraded pins. Bob weight was like 1680. So these are a little bit light right now. Definitely don't want to forget the nut that goes on top. That is part of the weight. All right, and I know I'm gonna need one more of these. Trying to get to 915. All right, that was like 914.7. I don't have anything that's small enough to not go over, so we'll probably end up using clay. 914.7. Break off a little piece of clay right here. Cool. And then I just put it right there in the corner. It won't move. All right, we'll put this one to the side, and then we're gonna do its partner, and then we're gonna make sure that they're 1830 exactly. This one's been cut a little bit. Let's see. Look at that. Oh, baby. Got lucky there. All right, 915 on the dot, and let's see where we are here. Boom. There we go. All right, so now I got all my bob weights built. Each half is 915 grams. 1830 total. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna key in some dimensions to the machine. So the machine needs to know a few different things. It obviously needs to know how big the counterweights are, and it also wants to know what's the length. So there's a few different numbers here. The first number is gonna be your radius, okay? So that is from the center line. The main journal size is 2.657. We'll just say 2.650 to be close. So the radius would be 1.325 plus whatever comes off that to the top of the counterweight. So, and it doesn't have to be super duper crazy. We're about 2.5 plus 1.350, 25. This one should be the same, but we're gonna check it anyways. Yeah, I'm just about 2.5 there as well. All right, your planes. There are 3 things here. Planes, 1, 2, and your third one is your bearing dimension. So your first plane is gonna be from here to here, about 1.5 inches. Your second plane is gonna be from that stand to the middle of the rear one. 1.5 inches and about 16.5. Sure. The bearing dimension is the center of the stand here to this center here, and it's 17.5. Our tolerance is 0.2 grams. Tolerance units is grams. We're done here, ready to go to the main balance screen. And now I just gotta put my bob weights on. I will say that I see a lot of bob weight cards, and I see a lot of guys balancing in ounces, and they get real close, like 0.12, 13 ounces, but at the end of the day, that's still 4.5 grams, and at 7,000 RPMs, that 4.5 grams is hundreds of pounds of force. So that's why I am so picky about getting stuff as close as possible. All right. So we want all these to kind of be the same orientation as each other. So the easiest way is to use 2 small, inexpensive levels. So I got one on the top of the keyway, which is going to be pretty straight for the top of this rod throw here. And then what I'm going to do is I'll get the nuts started, and then all we have to do is just snug them up. Also, we're trying to be right in the middle of the rod journal. Now I need to level this one. I don't really have anything good to go off of, so I'm actually just going to level off of this right here. It's not super critical. To kind of give you a good idea where you need to be. Alright, now I gotta put this one here. Alright, now we got 2 more and we'll be ready to spin this thing, get a preliminary reading. Alright, so we're ready to do the first spin here. I'm gonna lock this thing down. I just will keep the crank on the machine, hopefully, if anything happens. This is your indicator, so that's gonna show you where everything is, but it's not gonna work until I spin it the first time. So, first thing I'm gonna try to do is set the RPM. We're looking for around 500. And that's going to be good right there. Any guess on what it's off? I say 80. No, not that much. Alright, so we're 44 off on the front, 39 in the rear. Alright, so now we're going to go to what are we going to do? It's on remove right now, so if we go here, it wants us to remove a ton of weight there. That's not going to happen. And it wants some weight right where it's already added from the factory. We determined that was a factory piece of Mallory there. So the other option is to put another piece of Mallory in there, but Mallory's expensive. It's a not super tedious process, but it's a pain in the butt. So there's 2 holes from the factory, 2 5/8 holes. And so I've already done a little bit of preparation. Made these slugs that are also 5/8. They have a little bit of a slip fit. They have a nice radius at the bottom. They are the correct height for each hole, and they have a nice chamfer on top, and that's what I'm going to use to weld them in. So it's just 1018. It's a low carbon steel, super soft, easy to machine, and we'll just chuck them up in the lathe and cut them to length, and that'll fill the hole. We will weld up small holes like this, and I see a lot of guys welding, but it's a lot of welding wire to put down in there, and just a lot of heat that doesn't need to be in the crankshaft. So, alright, so I just weighed this. This thing weighs 60 grams. We need 40. We're not really taking anything away to put it in, so we will probably be a little bit heavy. And I can just simply drill 2 shallow holes on either side to take that back out. One thing I was going to say about Mallory is, so say for instance, we needed 100 grams. You're going to need at least 200 grams of Mallory, because what you're going to do is you're going to cut the steel out and replace it with a much denser metal. So, just for instance, this is 1018 steel 5/8. This is what? 3/4 Mallory, but it's much shorter. It's about a little over 2/3. I'd say close to 3/4 of the same length. This weighs 60 grams. That weighs 126. So that's why Mallory is typically added for weight, just like it does from the factory. All right, so I'm going to slam this thing in here, and then we're going to see how it is. All right, so we put that little slip fit in there, and I am going to weld this in. Sits nice and flush. We're just going to put a little bead here, but I'm not going to go back and forth to my welder, so I'm literally just going to peen it in so it doesn't fly out and hit me in the face. All right, and now because I knew that this end was also light, that this end is heavy. It should be on the opposite plane. So we do need to take away a little bit of material, but I will weld this in first. Next step, we're going to go here, and then we'll weld them in. So here, I believe this one was the shortest one. So we should be really, really close with these little pieces I've made here. Let me clean this hole out real quick. All right, here we go. Okay, yeah, we're good. We're just a little bit overweight on both sides, so we should be all right. I'm gonna pull this off the machine here. We'll go take these in real quick, and then we will revisit. All right, so now we're into my little fab area. So this is my TIG machine. It's a Miller Dynasty. And when you turn them on, it'll tell you how many hours you've had of welding on here. I think the first 4 digits are hours, and the next 2 are minutes. So it's up there. This will be just a simple little TIG. And while I'm here, I'm actually gonna TIG in the Mallory from the factory because I don't like it just pressed in like that. Shut up, Dave. All right, so both pieces are in. And now before I put it back on the balancer, I'm just gonna make it pretty and you won't even know it's there. I also did TIG the Mallory in from the factory, so just feel a little bit safer that way. Alright, so the crank's back on the machine. I've TIGged the holes and grinded them smooth, so you really can't tell. I mean, a little discoloration here, but you really cannot tell that we have added almost 80 grams in total to this crankshaft. So what we're going to do now, we're going to test spin, we're going to see where we're at, and we're going to start removing material. Get it down to 0. I'm going to work on this end first. This is the this is going to be the more challenging part, and the reason is it really wants material removed right from the edge. It's no big deal as long as it responds well to me removing it, but I don't have any inner counterweights to go towards. So how balancing works is, and the reason the machine needs to know how long the radius is, the same amount of weight will have more force farther out from the center and farther out from the middle here. So both ways. If you drill, say, an 1/8 inch hole, 1 inch deep, it might remove 20 grams from the end counterweight, but if you did the same 2 counterweights in, it's going to be like 8 grams. So when you really get down below, say, 2 to 3 grams, I start going in because it's more forgiving that way. So we'll start here and see what happens. This mill head uses an R8 collet, which I'd say a lot of more inexpensive mills use.
Now, does removing material from the crankshaft weaken it at all?
No. Unless you remove it in the way wrong spot. I mean, I've seen guys like have the rod cheeks razor thin because they didn't want to add Mallory or something. That to me is ridiculous. And while we're talking about ridiculousness, please, LS guys, quit smacking the end of the rod bolt off to get some extra clearance. There are plenty of connecting rods that come with a shorter bolt for strokers.
Public service announcement.
Alright, so I know this might look a little ghetto to everybody, but all I'm really trying to do is protect the rear journal here because it is riding on a piece of Delrin pretty much. I'm not trying to get any metal shavings up under there to scratch the crankshaft, so I'm literally just going to put a paper towel over here just to protect it, and then we'll blow any other contaminants off. I try to do this on both ends. If we're using a prep pad or something like this, that would take off very minor material but also throw a lot of dust. Of the second counterweight in, trying to get this obviously down closer to 0, but how I was talking about earlier is a lot of guys will balance in ounces for their tolerance, and so 0.1 ounce, you know, is I guess acceptable. I don't do that, but if it was, we would be done here already. We are going above and beyond of what the normal balance job entails. Alright, so that's I'm getting there. That's what I want. Everything is good exactly where it is. But we're going to get down below at least 0.3, but 0.2 is my number. That's what I'd like to be under. Alright, so currently we're at 0.4 grams and 0.8 grams. So we are definitely in the clear. I am going to try to get it a little bit closer though. We did have it flipped, so it was about 1.5 grams heavy. It wanted me to add weight. You can simply just remove that from the rod cheek area, and this crankshaft has little forging lines on it. You can kind of see really good. I'm going to show them right here. It'll be on this side. So just little forging lines, and all I simply do is I'll just kind of polish them out. So you can see I've taken about 0.5 gram there, and I also did it right here. So that brought me back to being a little bit heavy up top. We're 0.8 grams heavy up here. I am literally just going to polish the edge of the counterweight, and should be where we need to be. Alright, so we have got it really close, and I've just taken just a little one there and a little one here, and I'm hoping we will be at least under 0.3 on each end. Alright, so we made a couple different tweaks, and you know, once you get really down to it, this is an old machine. It's not probably going to tell you the exact right spot like some of these newer machines will. So every now and then you will be a little bit disappointed. I was like at 0.6 grams and I just barely touched it and it jumped up on me. So Andrew put the camera away because we thought the crank might be camera shy, and now we weren't recording. And
yeah, 0.06 and 0.17.
Yeah, so we'll see if it replicates it under 20. It should.
Yeah.
Alright.
0.15, 0.21.
Yeah, I'm happy with that. So in reality, anything under 2 grams is really good. Alright, so as close as we've got this crankshaft, I pretty much make my guys get everything under 0.2 grams or better. That's really picky. I would say anything under 2 grams is a really good balance job, because you're always going to have some type of discrepancy. In my bob weight card for this one, we're adding 2 grams for oil weight. That would be oil that's in the rod bearing area. So, but there's always going to be windage on the crankshaft from oil, and that will change the balance. I would say that 2 grams for oil allowance is probably the industry standard for a small block. For a big block, we typically add 3 to 3.5. And the industry standard for the reciprocating weight is 50%, but I do know some guys that do it at 49 or 51, 51 and a half. But I just do it at 50, never had a problem. Got plenty of 4.6 guys spin these cranks 9.5, 10,000 RPM, and we never ever have any problems. So I will keep doing it like I'm doing it right now. I think that's about it.
Yeah, that's it. So block comes in tomorrow.
Yep.
We got a few more parts. We got tensioner arms from Shelby and Mike coming in.
Yep.
Cams coming in. What else?
And then we need to put these cylinder heads together.
Yeah.
Which we were gonna try to do tonight, but we we ran out of time. So that'll be a fun one as well.
I don't think anyone realizes the amount of time that goes into this whole process.
No, not when you're doing it right. If you take your time to do it right, it does take a very, very long time. And I mean, the machinery is absolutely expensive. You know, the advantage that I have, I do a lot of crank balancing for other machine shops in town because there are not many crank balancers in this town for as many machine shops as there is. So anybody that's doing the amount of rotating assemblies and engine builds that we are, I would highly suggest getting a crank balancer. They will pay for themselves for sure. I bought this thing used like 5 or 6 years ago, and it's done at least 1,000 crankshafts, and I've maybe done $500 in repairs to it. That's it.
Anything else you want to say?
If anybody has any questions for us to go over as far as balancing goes, leave them in the comments. If you want us to touch on anything specific for cylinder head assembly, we will do that in the next video. Other than that, thanks for watching.